Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from Wayfinder Beer Company. We've done several of their beers over the years, but today's is the first of this specific beer style I've ever reviewed on this channel, and that is the German Rauchbier. Today's beer is called Linear Ashes. It clocks in at 5.5% ABV, and Wayfinder Beer Company is based in Portland, Oregon. So before we even jump into the beer, we'll go ahead and talk about the label, and then I'll give you a little background. This is going to be one of those kind of nerdy ones where I give you some language background, but it's got an interesting, I don't even know what to make. It almost looks like a German family crest kind of vibe on there. I don't know what it is I'm actually looking at, but it's pretty cool, and it's got a very neat font. So cool label, but Rauchbier, what does that mean? Well, that is a combination word in the German language. Der Rauch is the German word for smoke or for fume, and then beer is das Bier. That's the neuter case. So der is a masculine case. It is a gender-specific noun language, like most Romance languages you would know, like Spanish, Latin, French, take your pick. German does the same thing. So all of their nouns have genders. In the German language, there's masculine, feminine, neuter, and then there's plural. And plural is the exact same as the feminine article, which is the small little word that precedes the actual noun itself. So der is a gender that's masculine, identifies the noun as a masculine noun, which the German language, there's all sorts of conjugations, and it's not a super easy language to learn. I don't think it personally is necessarily that hard, but I'm pretty good with languages. But for maybe the average person, it's a little more challenging than, say, Spanish, which also uses genders for their nouns, but there are a lot less kind of changes as you're formulating sentences. But regardless, the word in German for smoke or fume is der Rauch. The word in German for beer is a neuter, is the gender that they call it, das Bier. So in German, if you have a compound word and it famously has tons of them and very, very, very long words, it will always take the gender of the last word that makes that specific word. So in this case, since it's a combination of both der Rauch and das Bier, it's going to be das Rauchbier. So that's the word in German for smoked beer, Rauchbier. So, smoked beer. I've never reviewed one of these on this channel. It's a beer style that I don't go for. And I tried some many years ago, decades, and I didn't care for it. But that was also long before I really got into Scotch whiskey, and specifically Islay, which uses peat smoked malts. So I'm thinking it might be high tide, one, that I actually get a Rauchbier review on this channel, and two, that I give it another go, because obviously tastes change over time. So we're going to try a German Rauchbier. This one, of course, being American made, and very much looking forward to it. So, language lesson all aside, let's get this cracked, poured into the glass. Gently. Okay, this is a light beer. It is a lager style beer, so it is lighter. It's just got smoked malts. So very, very lovely in the glass. Formed a pretty nice head there too. Visually, yeah, that's a deep golden yellow color. Really nice carbonation activity. I see very active, very tiny champagne-like bubbles floating around in there. The head is holding true, formed quite nicely. Let's get over this for a sniff. Yeah, it smells smoky. A lot of the aromas on this definitely put me in mind of sniffing an Islay Scotch. And that's just the nature of when you're smoking malts, be they for a beer or be they for making a whiskey, a Scotch specifically. But it smells quite nice. Aside from the smoke that is very evident, and they used beechwood in this one, they did tell us the specific wood that they used in this beer. You can absolutely smell a standard, nice, crisp lager underneath. There's a little bit of a honey sweetness to it. There's some nice kind of toasty, biscuity notes that come out, but the dominating aroma on this beer is for sure the smoked malts in it. Had it settled down a bit, it's still got a little cling all the way around the glass, a nice little pad floating on top. So we're going to jump right into a beer style I've never reviewed, a beer that I determined I didn't like, but I haven't tried one in about 20 years. So we're going to jump back in and see if my palate has changed. Let's go. Oh, yeah. That's very nice. Yeah, I can confirm that my palate has indeed changed. And I wholly appreciate what this is and what it's about. It is a beer style that is among the most polarizing, much like sours and IPAs are very polarizing in the world of beer. This is another one of those handful that you either kind of like it or you are going to dislike it strongly. There's really not a lot of middle ground. And it's just due to the nature of the beast. So the first thing I want to talk about on this beer is the body and the mouthfeel. It is exceptionally silky. When you agitate around the palate, it really fills up voluminously the volume of your mouth space. It's very silky smooth. It just feels like big, fluffy, liquid velvet floating around the palate. It's absolutely incredible. In terms of the body, how it actually feels weight-wise, is quite light. It feels very classic lager. It is a light body. It's not super heavy. It doesn't feel dense. 5.5%, I would maybe expect it to feel a little more weighty, but it doesn't. This is a light, maybe bordering on medium light. I would call it in general a light body. So it's not oppressive, which is good because the flavor is extremely intense. I think if you paired this flavor profile with a big, weighty, heavy beer, it might be a bit over the top for many, many people. But the elephant in the room, the smoked malts. What is the effect on the beer? Is it as intense as it is on the aroma? Yes, absolutely it is. Some people would say it tastes of a campfire. That's a very common descriptor, and that's not off base. It is made with smoked malts, and the only way to do that is to have the malts either drying over smoke being fed directly up into them, or maybe they're already dry, but they want to impart that characteristic, that flavor, that aroma into the malts. That's how you smoke malts. So part of that process is going to impart all of those compounds that go into the smoke, and it impacts the beer with a ton of smoky aroma and flavor. Now, I actually really like this. It does put me in mind a lot of Islay Scotch. Obviously, this being a beer and not a big, in-your-face warming Scotch whiskey. But it's quite nice. So if you like Islay Scotch and you've never tried Rauchbier or even the converse, these would be two easy ones to go in between. So my first time trying a Rauchbier in 20 plus years, I gotta say, I definitely like it now. I understand fully why I didn't appreciate it when I was younger and first dipping my toes into good and craft beer. It's a polarizing style, but I've expanded my palate over time, certainly tried and acquired the taste for many different things. And yeah, I'm definitely all about this. So if you are one of the small handful of people that like Rauchbier, then this review is for you, for sure. So body, mouthfeel, excellent. Aroma, excellent. What do you get on the flavor profile? Well, the obvious is a lot of smoke. And yeah, it absolutely does distinctly taste of beechwood, whether or not you've ever had a beechwood Rauchbier. But if you've ever had beechwood barbecue, it's got a very distinct flavor. It's quite nice. It's maybe not as intense as something like, say, hickory would be, which actually makes it maybe a little more approachable. If somebody were trying to experiment with beer styles like, oh gosh, I've never gotten that, let's try it again, I want to appreciate it, this would probably not be a bad stepping stone, though there is still a definite intensity of both smoke, aroma, and flavor, so it's not for the faint of heart. I've got to get that out of the way. But if you already do really enjoy Rauchbier, then yeah, this is one you're definitely going to like. So we're going to jump back in for our second sip. let everything re-intensify. We're going to pick apart this flavor profile again. We're going to talk about the balance, and we're going to talk about the finish. But I'm really glad that after a couple decades, I jumped back into this beer style. Quite nice. Take two. That mouthfeel is incredible. So on first sip, as soon as you swallow, you get an interesting mix of flavors. You get that distinct smoky beechwood flavor in tandem with that nice honey sweetness. And after about the 5 to 10 second mark, kind of both of those are still lingering, but they've dialed back just enough that the underlying other malt characteristics really start to open up. And this is one that is very bready. It's very grainy. So that's kind of the three big profiles that I'm getting on this. It's very cereal grain-like and smoke and honey. So it's this combination of these three flavors, and it really makes for a very well blended, very well balanced package. Something as big and intense as a Rauchbier, I imagine, is extremely challenging and difficult to balance unless all you're going for is pure in-your-face smack you with smoke. They didn't do that here. I mean, yes, it's very pronounced. Obviously, the smoke is going to be immediately noticeable, especially compared to any other beer style. But this is an extremely well-balanced beer, and it's quite nice. I like what they did with it. I don't know what hops they used. It's not particularly bitter. If I had to put a number on it, I would say maybe 15 IBUs. There's a little hint of some kind of earthy bitterness, but it's not a hop-driven beer style at all, by design. But talking about finally the finish, as you might expect on something this big and bold and pungent as a smoked malt-based beer, yes, the finish on this one is indeed quite long, and it is absolutely the smoked malts that are the driving factor. That's what's really, really pushing it out in the back end. But I gotta say, in tandem with that, surprisingly, there's still a lot of lingering honey-like sweetness on the palate as well. So whatever malts that they added in tandem with the smoked malts, really doing a nice job to not only balance, but also help kind of balance the finish on the back end. It's just a very, very well-crafted beer. I gotta say, I'm really glad I gave this beer style another chance. I hope that's coming through on camera. And if you're already into Rauchbier, yeah, this is a winner. If not, then hey, you're getting to hear my opinions on somebody that swore I dislike this beer style. I have just become a convert after over 2 decades. So yeah, this is a good one. I am going to really dig into this beer. I'm going to take my time, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Wayfinder Beer Company's Linear Ashes, a Rauchbier clocking in at 5.5% ABV. Wayfinder Beer Company is based in Portland, Oregon. So yeah, this was an experience for me. I swore that I hated this beer style, give or take 2 decades ago, for just a guess. Somewhere around there, 21, 22, the first time I tried a Rauchbier. And I said, no, this is not for me. I have literally not tried one since, but I am a massive fan of peated, malted whiskeys from Scotland. So the Islay region, which are smoked peat, is how they smoke their malts. So I said, you know what? Since I really, really like that, maybe I should give this beer style a whirl again. And yeah, I'm glad that I did. So we're going to jump right into this. This beer did extremely well across the board. Literally only 2 categories I did not give it a perfect score, so we're just going to jump straight to those 2 categories in question. The first was the body. This body, very light, bordering maybe on medium light. It's a lager. It's not going to feel super duper heavy, but it is a 5.5% ABV beer. So while I did think it was technically, and I was probably being kind here, above average, it wasn't quite as robust as I expected for the ABV range. Even though, yes, it is a lager, I did give the body a 7 out of 10. The second category that did not get a perfect score was the head and retention. This one formed a pretty good head at the start, but it did collapse quite a bit quicker than I anticipated. On this one, really, it just came down to the activity with the carbonation, the effervescence. It was rushing up, a lot of very fast-moving, superfine champagne-like bubbles, and that just collapsed the head from the underside. So it did form a nice one. It stuck around, okay, but it was gone within the first 20 seconds other than just a small little pad floating on top. I said it was high end of average. I gave the head and retention a 6, and it did get a perfect 10 out of 10 in all of the other 8 remaining categories. That's aroma, taste, mouthfeel, finish, appearance, balance, feeling and intangibles, my subjective thoughts category, and example of style. So the final score on Wayfinder Beer Company's Linear Ashes is a 93. That's a very, very high score, guys. For somebody who swore I hated this beer style, I haven't tried it in 20 years. This is a definite gold star from me. Very, very well done. Obviously, I was being extremely objective across the board, even though I thought that, oh, you know, I don't like this beer style. I got one because I've never reviewed one. And of course, objectivity is the name of the game on this channel. We have a separate category in a single category out of our 10 that is my subjective thoughts. And on this one, subjectively, I give it a perfect 10 out of 10. So yeah, this beer got a well-earned 93 out of 100. Very, very high score, guys. If you already like Rauchbier, this is one I would put on my radar if you can get your hands on it. I got mine from Tavour. If you've never tried Tavour and or you've never had an Islay Scotch whiskey, like I said, it's one of the 3 main major polarizing beer styles. Rauchbier, sours, IPAs. And they're all for the same reason but different aspects. IPAs are pungently bitter in general. People that don't appreciate bitter flavor sensation are not going to like an IPA. Sours are sour. People that don't like sour things aren't going to like sour beers. Rauchbier is smoky. People that don't like consuming a smoke-filled aroma and flavor liquid are not going to like a Rauchbier. So yeah, it's one of the polarizing few. I haven't tried one in ages, but I'm very, very glad that I did. And I gotta say, if you're kind of like me, and maybe you tried one in the past, but it's been a while, give it another chance. Especially if, like I have, you have acquired a taste for Islay Scotch in the interim. Definitely worth the whirl. I absolutely loved it. I will be picking up more Rauch beers when I find them. Not the most common beer style, to be certain, but they are out there, so I will keep my eyes peeled for more to review. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, toggle that bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.